By April 1945, the Third Reich was collapsing. Allied forces advanced through the rubble of Berlin, while Adolf Hitler remained isolated in his underground bunker. Terrified of being captured and put on trial, he took his own life. To ensure his remains would never be recovered, his body, along with his wife Eva Braun's, was taken to the Chancellery Garden and drenched in gasoline. That extreme act closed out the war in Europe, but it also highlighted a strange historical detail. Unlike almost every other major dictator of the modern era, he never had a single child. He left the world completely devoid of a direct heir. That absence created a perceived biological vacuum, and for decades the public has been obsessed with finding out if his bloodline actually survived the war. The reality is, his family tree goes far beyond a single branch. He had a mother, a father, siblings, and nephews who all carried the exact same genetics. This fact has driven journalists around the globe to hunt down anyone walking the streets today with a biological link to the Führer. The search eventually spawned a popular legend that a handful of surviving relatives living quietly in the United States had gathered together and made a formal, secret pact to never have children. So, we need to find out who these descendants actually are, where they went after the war, and whether they truly organized the intentional extinction of their own family line. The household Hitler grew up in was deeply unstable. His father, Alois, was an aggressive, absent figure. Out of 6 children born to Alois and his third wife, only 2 survived into adulthood, Adolf and his younger sister Paula. Paula played no meaningful role in the Nazi government. When the war ended, she was arrested and interrogated by the Allies, offering conflicting views on her brother's actions. She lived a quiet, isolated life until she passed away at age 64. She never married and never had kids. With her passing, the primary, direct branch of that immediate family tree came to a permanent end. To find any living relatives, we have to look at the children from his father's previous marriage. That gives us 2 half-siblings, Angela and Alois Jr. Angela had 3 children. Her son, Leo Raubal, served in the German Air Force and was captured during the Battle of Stalingrad. The Soviets offered to exchange him for Jakub Jigashvili, who was Joseph Stalin's own son. Hitler flatly refused the trade, leaving his nephew in a Soviet prison camp for over a decade. Then there was Angela's daughter, Geli. She lived with her uncle in Munich during the late 1920s, trapped in an intensely controlling environment where he dictated her every move. In 1931, after a severe argument over her desire to leave for Vienna, she was found dead in his apartment from a self-inflicted gunshot. Angela's side of the family was essentially suffocated by their proximity to the dictator. That leaves only one remaining path to follow, the lineage of his half-brother, Alois Jr. Alois Jr. cut ties with the family early on. He moved to Ireland, married a local woman named Bridget Dowling, and eventually settled in England. It was there they had their only son, William Patrick Hitler. As his uncle rapidly gained power in the 1930s, William decided to travel to Germany. He openly tried to exploit his infamous last name to secure high-paying jobs in the regime, leaning entirely on nepotism. The Nazi elite quickly grew tired of his constant demands and public exhibitionism. When the Gestapo started monitoring him, William wrote a letter directly to his uncle, demanding a better salary and threatening to expose embarrassing family origins to the international press if he didn't get his way. He successfully extorted a payoff. Knowing his luck would run out, William fled to the United States right before the war. He published an article titled "Why I Hate My Uncle," detailing the paranoid and oppressive atmosphere of the inner circle. Then, in 1944, he wrote to President Roosevelt requesting permission to join the U.S. Navy, and subsequently fought against the Axis powers in the Pacific. The closest living relative to the leader of the Third Reich ultimately spent the war wearing an American uniform, actively fighting to tear down his own family's empire. When the war ended, William wanted nothing to do with his past. He legally changed his last name to Stuart Houston to erase the association entirely. He moved to a quiet neighborhood in Long Island, New York, where he and his wife raised 4 sons, Louis, Howard, Brian, and Alexander. The family adopted a strictly private lifestyle, refusing interviews and dodging any media attention. Over the years, because none of these 4 brothers ever had children of their own, the rumor of a deliberate, organized pact took hold. But in 2002, the eldest surviving brother went on the record to state that no such agreement ever existed. It's purely a coincidence. Yet, journalists still periodically track them down. forcing these men to navigate an intense psychological burden. They are continuously harassed over a historical atrocity they had absolutely zero part in. They did everything possible to live as ordinary Americans, but the public's morbid fascination with their bloodline refuses to let them fade into the background. It raises a difficult question about why we are so captivated by this search in the first place. There is an undeniable urge to hunt down anyone with that specific DNA. But judging someone entirely by their genetics introduces a dark irony. Blaming these men for the sins of their ancestors relies on the exact same biological determinism that the Nazi regime used to justify its crimes. Stigmatizing an innocent family simply because of the blood running through their veins subtly reproduces the racialist principles that the world fought so hard to dismantle. The persistence of his ideology poses far more risk than the survival of his genetics. True vigilance means confronting the people who share his thoughts, rather than persecuting the ones who happen to share his blood.